What's up, everybody? So, today I wanted to talk to you guys about a post that I made on LinkedIn and on Twitter. And it talked about my journey through my career of moving up and starting in one career in 2012 and moving to a completely different career in 2015, all the way to making $100,000 last month. And it looks like going to be $100,000 this month as well. And a lot of you responded to that post, and there got a million emails, a million friend requests. And how did you do it? What was your story? How can I get there? And I'm going to preface this video with this is not going to be clickbait. There's no easy answer. There's no one answer as to how I got there. But I do want to share my journey and what I did, what steps I took, what path got me to making this kind of money. And hopefully there's lessons here to be learned. So let's go ahead and just chat about it. So you saw in the first little bit that my first job was in accounting, and I took that job and I did that career in college because for me, I thought it was safe. I never picked a career because I enjoyed it. I really was starting to pick a career because I thought it would make good money. And I grew up poor, and that's part of the motivation for me, at least in college, was because my parents were not high school graduates. I was the only first person in my family to actually even graduate high school, going up the entire chain. And on top of that, I was the first person to graduate college, get my master's, and I am also in college became the last surviving member of my family, which I've never shared any of this with anybody. So there's a lot of obstacles there to overcome, and in my mind, I was like, man, I'm so poor. I have to do something about it. And my decision was, I'm going to pick this career choice because I know accounting is safe. I know people need accountants, and I know that they can make good money. So I did that, and I graduated with my degree. I went into accounting and quickly realized that it was terrible. So lesson one is don't pick a job because of the money. Pick a job because you're passionate about it. And it might be hard to determine what you're passionate about. It took me forever to find what I really desired and what I enjoyed doing. But I did this job from 2012. I started out at $40,000 a year, and I worked my way up to a job making $55,000 a year. And that was in 2014, 2015. Now, this job for me was a job that required me to actually move to the middle of nowhere. And I've got a post on this about how I had this job and I left it and I moved into accounting and got a job in information security. And I'll link that post down below. But the summary is I was working this job. I left all my friends. I moved to this random city. I was driving 45 minutes to work on these one-way roads where, these tractors could literally cause a delay for you being to work if they're in the road. Like, it was country living, and it was unhappy living too. Like, I would leave work, it was dark out. I would get home, it was dark out. I never saw the daylight except for maybe lunchtime. So on top of that, my job was terrible. My boss was terrible. And it led me to this breaking point to where I walked out. I didn't have anything lined up. I had credit cards. I had no money really to my name. And I just decided, you know what, screw it. I'm going to leave and I'm going to find a better life for myself. So I found a very, very distant relative that was in Albuquerque, New Mexico, and decided, I've never been to New Mexico. I'm just going to take all my stuff, move out there, and see how it goes. Well, I didn't stay in contact for long with the relative, but I did end up making something for myself out there. And for me, it was a little bit of luck. I thought to myself, well, I really like computers. I've got some background experience in computers, and I bet that I could troubleshoot this computer. I didn't have any certifications or any schooling. Like, I had an MBA, but my MBA, it was in computer information systems, but really it's more about software than it was about troubleshooting. So I went out on a whim and I said, I'm going to try this. And I started looking at all these jobs, and all of these jobs had these requirements that were insane. Like, they wanted 3 years experience, 5 years experience, all these certifications, all these degrees, etc. I really almost didn't even apply to the job I ended up getting because I looked at it and I said, there's no way I'm going to get this job. But you know what I did? I went ahead and applied anyway. And that was a big life lesson for me, and something that I've followed throughout my career is if you see the job requirements, ignore them. Like, they're good to look at, they're good to understand a baseline of what people want, but most job requirements, especially if you're in IT or information security, they're all bullshit. Like, they really are. You're just not going to have the level of experience that they're looking for. So my recommendation is to apply for a job regardless of what happens. The worst thing that can happen is they say no or they don't send you an email. The best thing that can happen is that you actually end up with a job where you want to work. So I did just that. I applied to this job. It was a help desk job. They were offering $50,000 a year, which, okay, slight paid grade or D grade for me, right? But I went in there and it quickly became apparent that I was not ready for this job. But I sat down in that interview with them and I said to them, I said, look, I understand that I might not be your best candidate, but I will prove to you that I'm your best candidate. I will take the time. I will learn what I need to learn. I'll study after hours. Please just give me this chance to work with you and I'll make it worth it. And on top of that, I actually offered to take less money. So when the offer came back to me, they did offer the job. I ended up getting an offer for $44,000. Now, I was living on a $55,000 lifestyle, so cutting $11,000, which is what, 20% or close of your lifestyle out, it's pretty difficult. But for me, I ended up making it work, and I actually used that to motivate myself as well. I used that to sit there and I used it to study. I would study during my breaks. I would study when there was downtime. I would study when I got home from work. And I just started racking up certification after certification after certification. And it didn't go unnoticed either. I started getting promoted at work. I went from what's called a level 1 to a level 2 to a network administrator. And these are all small little promotions, but they're steps up. And I moved up really quick and I learned a lot really quick. And by the end of my time leaving that job, I was at around 52 or 53,000, which took a year and a half to get back to. But I had left a field that I had degrees in, plural degrees, and went to a field where I had no degrees, but I asked them to take a chance on me. I got a little bit lucky, but I also put in hard work. And I was the guy studying every night. And you have these coworkers, and this is something that you see too in the field. You'll have these coworkers that are happy where they're at or they're complacent. And I still have friends to this day that work in the same job at the same companies. And it's because they're, either they're happy or they just are complacent. They don't have a desire to move up or to learn more. And for me, it was always, I want to know more. How can I improve? How can I get better? And I was putting in 60-hour weeks, 70, 80-hour weeks. And from there, I started applying to more jobs. And I remember reading this article at some point. It might have been in between or a little bit after, but there's this Forbes article too that said, and I'll link it down below, but it said something along the lines of, you make 50% less money when you stay at a company for 2 or more years. So you are more beneficial to actually leave for pay promotions than you are to stay with the company. I know it sucks. There's part of me that loves loyalty, and I was so loyal to my company, the one that took a chance on me. They took a chance on me, and they gave me everything I needed, and they gave me the skill set and the tools. But for me, at the same time, I was at a dead end. I had learned enough that I couldn't move up. I wanted to move into cybersecurity, not just IT. They had no cybersecurity position for me. So it was either stay with this company and, be complacent, be in this same position and never really go forward, and for me, I just didn't want that. So I ended up starting applying for jobs, and I ended up landing a job as a senior network engineer. I completely skipped the junior level, moved right into the senior level. Now that is a combination of 1, hard luck, and 2, hard work and luck. Hard luck too, though. It's a combination of both, because I busted my ass to even get myself in that interview. And the luck part was that I applied for a junior position. But again, I went into that interview and I didn't know a ton, but I sat there and I told them, look, I will promise you that I will get any certification that you need me to get. I will be ready to go in this job, and I will be a hire that you do not regret. And again, it came back for me that I had that, and I had a master's degree, which allowed them to actually bring me in as a senior level and gave me a pay rate of about $78,000 when I first got there. And that was a great job. Another job for me, senior network engineer. I learned a ton about Cisco command line, a lot about networking in a very, very short period of time. But again, it was still a stepping stone. Like that was something that I saw that I needed to do. I needed to learn these foundations for me, but I also needed to start studying and move on to where I wanted to be, which was an ethical hacker slash working in cybersecurity. And the passion was always there. I started working towards more certifications. These are all certifications I'm going to name. If you're not familiar with cybersecurity, that's fine. But the OSCP, the OSWP, the CEH, I started working towards all these ethical hacking certifications while I was in this network engineering job. And by the time it was all said and done, from start to finish, I went from a help desk, which is a very, very entry level job, to being a penetration tester within 2 years, or an ethical hacker within 2 years. And it takes some people a lot of time to get there. And that's something to point out too, is like, when I posted this, I got people out there hating on me for making these jumps. They're like, yeah, he became a senior, and I got a senior title with the pen tester as well. And the title doesn't mean anything, right? Like titles are great, but they don't always mean anything. There are people out there that are seniors, and it's because they've been in their job for 10 years and they have a title, and those people are possibly not as good as the guy who's been around for a year or two. There is possibility that there is somebody that's been at a job 5 or 10 years, and the new guy comes in, and the new guy goes and they study every night. And that's what I did. They study in their downtime, where the person who's been there for 5 or 10 years, they just do their job and they go home. They check out. They're complacent. Okay? And so when people say, wow, they don't say, like, they say, oh yeah, you made it here in a year. Okay, yeah. Well, it happened. And it didn't happen just because, I knew the right person or anything like that. I busted my ass to get to where I got. And that's the kind of stuff that you're going to encounter as well on your journey. If you're a hard worker, you're going to find people that are going to talk shit because they're jealous, or they just don't believe it because they didn't accomplish it. And you're going to find people that are what I call pay your dues people, meaning I think you should stay in this job position for 2 years, 3 years, 4 years before you get to move up. And that's just bullshit. If you're ready to move up, then you're ready to move up. And the only person that knows that is you. And so for me, I did my time. I got my certifications. I was ready to move on to the next job, become an ethical hacker. And I did that. And I got a pay bump up to $102,000 a year. And I was in that job for a year and a half. Still, again, learning everything I could, busting my ass. And by the time it was said and done, after a year, I got a promotion. I got a promotion to $140,000 a year, and I was making a lot of bank, right? Like who wants to leave that kind of job when you're making that much money? And I did. That was one of the hardest decisions of my life because I was making plenty of money. And I decided that I was at a place in my life similar to my first job where I was almost the smartest guy in the room, if not the smartest guy in the room. I had worked with very talented people in that job and in the help desk job. And my manager had left, and then the seniors above me had left. And I'm all about mentorship and being able to help others, especially at your job. You're supposed to train the juniors. But when there's nobody above you to learn from, or a situation that I didn't think I could learn from, complacency starts to set in. And for me, it felt like I was just on a path again to complacency. So I decided that I was going to challenge myself, and I took savings. I had about 6 months of savings, and I said, you know what? I'm going to do this on my own. On top of that, starting back when I got my certification, back when I was a network engineer and doing the certifications for ethical hacking, I started recording and giving back to the community and making YouTube content and stuff like this, right? And I started out with a cheap microphone, 720p camera, the worst of the worst. And I just wanted to give back. I wanted to be good at something, and I wanted to create content. I love to teach, and that's one of my passions. On top of cybersecurity, I love to teach. And if I could combine both of those, for me, fantastic. So I also work on that, right? And I go home and I study how to get better. And as the channel's grown, as I've grown, I learned how to edit. I learned how to speak without saying a million times or saying and going through that process. I learned how to record with better equipment. I purchased better equipment, and I just invested in myself, and I took chances on myself. And that's coming into sort of the next phase. Is the leaving for this job was two-part phase, because one, I was starting to gain popularity on the interwebs as who I was. And the field is, it's not huge. Cybersecurity is a big field, but ethical hacking is not huge. But I was starting to gain some traction for who I was, to the point that there were companies and clients coming to my job that I was working at and asking for me to do their pen test or their work. And I was seeing $0 out of that, right? So why would I bring money in and not see any return? There was no promotion opportunities. I was at a dead end. There was no capability of getting promoted farther. They eliminated the management position for what reason, I don't know, when the manager left, and I was really at a dead end. So with companies coming to the job and asking for me, and just seeing the opportunities there that I could take advantage of, I did that. So I left. I packed up my bags and I started my own company, and it has been a slow roll. I made about $80,000 in the last 6 to 8 months, which is not bad. The actual overhead is really low in this field. So it's very slow rolling, and you have to build up clientele, and you have to just keep making a name for yourself, getting those recommendations. And I've talked all about that in the entrepreneurial episodes that I have on my channel. And from there, you just start creating as well these revenue streams. So like, I get money from YouTube. It's not a lot. I get money from streaming on Twitch. I get money for doing Amazon affiliates, and I get money for working side work. I do 1099 work. I'm still putting in anywhere from 60 to 80 hours a week. I have the inability sometimes to just sleep. My mind is going all the time, and that is unhealthy. It's not a healthy feature to have. There are nights where I'll go lay down and I just cannot stop thinking about the thing I want to do next. And that is just me. I'm constantly motivated. And has that given me success? Absolutely. Has there been luck involved in that success? Absolutely. But you start taking these tasks that you do, these little jobs that you do, and you take the YouTube money, you take the Twitch money, you take the 1099 work you're doing on the side, and you take the business money that you're doing, and you take any other thing that you can do to scrape up money, bug bounties, etc. And on top of that, I take my passion for loving to teach, and I put together a course on Udemy, and I made that course the best that I could make it. I sat there and I said, what would I wanted to know coming through my career, and what did I miss out on through all the lessons that I learned? And I put those into a course that I thought nobody else had done. And the response to that was really great as well. So that course was about half the revenue that I earned, a little over half the revenue of 130,000 or so for December. And so that was around 65, 70,000 in revenue, which was really good. And you take that and you combine that with, the business, the YouTube, everything else added in, it just adds up. And so that's part of it as well. You can't expect to make all of your income off of one place. If you're making your income in one area, you're probably cutting yourself short. So your goal should be to have a hustle. It doesn't matter what that hustle is, as long as that hustle, one, makes you happy, and two, can bring in income to you. And something I need to point out is I've never been in this for any bit of money. There's never been a money drive for me. The money drive in the beginning, absolutely. With the accounting and being poor growing up, and just living the life that I did when I grew up, it was what it was. And I lost that passion for money and gained the passion for the field that I'm in. And I do work a lot, and I love it, because for me, cybersecurity is something that I'm so passionate about, and teaching is something that I'm so passionate about. It doesn't feel like I'm working 60 to 80 hours a week. Okay. And it's not every week. There's times where I'm working 40 hours. There's times where I work 20 hours. But the point is that you have to put in the hard work to get here. There is no secret sauce. There is no simple solution. If you want to make this money, you do have to work hard. You have to have revenue streams, and you have to get a little bit lucky. There's luck involved all across the board. I'm not going to sit here and say that I haven't been lucky in my life, because I have. Now, I don't know if this revenue is going to stay consistent. I think it fluctuates, especially being a business owner. You never know when money's going to come in from clients or when you're going to have downtimes. So while I had a successful month, it doesn't mean that they're going to be chained and I'm going to be a millionaire anytime soon. But you have to bet on yourself, and that's really the big thing. And that's the last thing I want to touch on too. Is a few months ago, I had an opportunity to work for a really prominent computer training website. They reached out to me and they said, "Hey, we want you. We like your YouTube content. We think you teach well." And I went to this interview, and for me, this was a dream job. I used this platform when I was coming up and I was just starting in IT. I used their trainings, all this stuff. And guess who's in the interview with me? But the guy that I absolutely adore from this company. So the CEO and this guy that I adore, one of the trainers that, oh my God, I was fanboying so hard. And they're here and they're telling me like, we want you to come work for us. And it went really well, except for the fact that they were going to change who I was. They weren't going to let me teach on my YouTube channel. They weren't going to let me release courses and be who I was. They wanted me to take myself and they wanted me to promote their stuff through my channel, which makes sense because I would make money every time somebody views my content on their website, but they would make money too. And so for me, I had this opportunity where it would have been a six-figure opportunity at some point, I do believe, but not right away. And for me, I went ahead and said, you know what, I'm not going to do this. I'm going to bet on myself. And just like I bet on myself with my job and going out and doing my own business, I bet on myself on this course. And this course has already generated over 6 figures now on its own within the first, it's almost 2.5 weeks. So it has done incredibly well. Okay. And that's the last lesson here, is to absolutely bet on yourself, trust your gut, trust your instincts, and don't take a situation that's going to prohibit you from doing what you want in the future. So let's recap everything that I just talked about, okay? So you have to be willing to tell somebody that you can learn. You have to be willing to say, I don't know. When you're looking for jobs, don't look at the requirements, become the requirement, okay? Become the requirement. Make them want you. When you get to that interview, guess what? Tell them like, I don't know the answer to your question, but I promise you I'll learn. Bring a piece of paper, notepad, whatever to the interview. Write down all the questions you don't know, because maybe they're going to ask them again in the second interview if you get there. And it looks really good if you went home and you studied and you came back and you had those answers. You take that kind of information. You maybe even be willing to take a pay cut. Bank on yourself. Trust your gut. Bet on yourself. That's what I've done my whole career, is I bet on myself. I've taken less money to bet on myself, and I've proven myself to others, and that's something you have to do. You have to work hard. You have to be yourself, okay? And if you feel that you are no longer the smartest person in the room, it's also time to move on. There's everything out there is great when you want to mentor somebody, but you also have to be mentored. Never be the smartest person in the room. Always strive to be the dumbest. Put in the hard work. Be the best you can be. And as you get more success, you're going to have haters come out. They're going to talk shit to you. Guess what? You know what? You're the one who's successful. They're the one who's still in the same job for 5 years. And they're just jealous, right? So that's it. That's my life lesson. That's my little journey here. I hope I can release another video in a year or something that says, look, here's where I went from last video and here's where I am now. And hopefully it's really successful. Maybe you'll see me in a Bugatti or something, right? Not likely. I'm pretty cheap with my money. But anyway, hopefully you learned something from this lesson. Hopefully you take something away from this and apply it to your life. And it's not going to happen overnight, but if you work hard, it might happen in a few years. It might happen in 5 years. And just put in that work, put in that effort, and you will be successful. That's it for me. Until next time, my name is The Cyber Mentor, and I thank you for joining me.